We'll start. Welcome, everybody. My name is Marine, and I'm the coordinator for French. And today I will introduce my colleague Bertrand, who will give this talk today. So I will say a few words about Bertrand before I introduce this talk. Bertrand is teaching French here at Imperial, but before that, he worked in Turkey, Istanbul, and then he moved to London and started working at Imperial. He's also working at Reading, University of Reading, since 2022. And he's recently completed his Master of Education. And so he worked on a study focusing on students' motivation and investment in languages. So in this talk today, Bertrand will present his research study, and he will focus on students and language teachers' perspective at Imperial, which is a STEM college. And he interviewed several students to find out why they invested time and efforts in learning languages. And I'm sure Bertrand will be able to give us lots of recommendations on how to engage students and sustain their investment in language learning. So I think this seminar will last about an hour, but we'll dedicate some time to questions at the end of the presentations. So whether you are online or here in the room, feel free to ask questions at the end.
Thank you, Marine. Yeah, like this, good. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. So yes, my name is Bertrand. I work at Imperial College. So just a few words about Imperial. You know, it's a university focusing on STEM, and students can take a module outside of their subject, such as language, culture, and communication. So it's where I work, this center where we offer modules in social science, languages, and culture and communication. So I completed a master's in education last year, and the title of my research is Exploring the Perspective of Undergraduate Students and Teachers on Student Investment in Language Learning, and it's what I'm gonna talk about today. I will start with the rationale of my study, why I've chosen to do that. I will explain a little bit. Then I will explain the theoretical framework. Then I will present the findings, and I will discuss the findings with you, and I will end with some recommendations. Yeah. So the starting point of this research is a general reflection on student engagement. We have experts here. What makes a successful session, according to you? Any tips?
That's okay. More than you. I think it's successful.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, anything else? Yeah, variety of activities. Yeah. Yes.
Students come prepared and they engage with their teams.
If they don't prepare too much. Yeah. Yes. That's true. There are many things. Usually, when I ask teacher, they talk a lot about interaction to make the session interactive. So they need to be active, and yet, like, despite our efforts, sometimes students are more quiet. They seem uninterested, shy, not motivated. And when I talk to my colleagues, we usually face the same issue. So the aim of this study is to find out what motivates students to learn a language alongside their subject, alongside their degree, and I wanted to get student perspective about it. And because some students, despite being STEM focused in a competitive and often a time poor context, they make the time to learn a language, and they see it as a pathway to broader cultural context and potential future identity. So there were two, regarding the theoretical framework, there were two main concepts which were interesting for my research. First is the motivation, which is more psychological perspective, and then the notion of investment, which is more sociological perspective. So they both aim to explain why learners dedicate time and effort to learn a language, but they have a different perspective. Yes. So, regarding motivation focus more on learning style and individual aptitudes. For me, the main author is Dornier, which developed the concept of L2, so second language motivational self-system, with three components: the ideal L2 self, which is the vision of a learner in the future, how they see themselves in the future as a proficient speaker. The O2 self, which is more about the external influences, such as parents or pressure from society to learn something. And then the third element is the learning experience, which can influence the motivation. So there are some empirical studies, such as Chize and Kormos or Ryan. They show that the principal factor for motivation is the ideal L2 self, which is again the vision of the future self of learners. Yeah. Then regarding the investment, which is more about the social context, the one critique of motivation research is that language learners are often viewed as having fixed traits and personalities, so they can be inhibited, uninhibited, motivated, demotivated, shy, introverted, extroverted. But for the authors, investment focus more on identity and can shift based on context, personal history, environment. And there is often ambivalent desire to speak a language and commitment to do it. You can be motivated to learn a language. It doesn't mean you will dedicate time and effort to it. Yes. Also, when learners invest in a second language, they aim to acquire a wider range of symbolic and material resources to boost the value of their cultural capital. and they expect this investment in language will bring returns and to give them access to opportunities and resources that were previously out of reach. For example, there are some. There is a third element, which is ideologies. It shapes the value of identities and resources. So investment is at the crossroad of identity, capital, and ideology. So there are some studies. For example, Norton and Cramch, they study immigrants in Canada, and they show that this learner of English, sometimes they will make the basic grammatical mistakes because the person they talk with are making comments about the accent, for example. So the point is that investment depends on context. So my research question is how do students' identities, interaction, and response to their learning environment influence the investment in their optional language studies, and how can teachers better support them in maximizing this investment? So there are two types of sources. I conducted interviews with undergraduates enrolled in an optional language module. And I also sent a questionnaire to teachers to gather their view. Thank you very much if you fill the questionnaire. So I identified three themes across the data set. The first is future self, which explore the importance of clear goals and imagined communities to which learners participate in or aspire to join. The second is language skills. So students and teachers, it was more about how exploring how students and teachers interpret their learning in relation to the development of language skills. And the third theme discusses the resource acquisition, which I view as the aspect of language that students invest in to increase their cultural capital. Yeah. So for my finding, I will read. I've chosen some quotes. I will read them with you. So, for example, Jack, life science students with German. Yeah. I'm considering staying in research, and again, there is a lot of interesting research in Germany. I wouldn't be surprised if there are going to be an opportunity for me in the future to interact with the scientific community there. So even if I'm going to industry again, there's still going to be quite a lot of connection, and I wouldn't be surprised. Here's a language teacher saying, in my view, learner investment is mostly determined by learners having a clear idea of what they want to achieve in the language and why they want to learn it. And another language teacher, find out why they are learning the language, what interests them most about it, and integrate it in your teaching. Any thoughts about this? Any reaction?
Sounds likely.
Yes, it sounds
likely. Like it sounds like what I would expect to hear.
yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like this idea of future self affects how it affects students' engagement in student learning, in language learning. So it's important part of learning. Yeah. I get rid of that. Yes. So the second theme is about language skills. So how students and teachers interpret language skills development. Chloe, engineering student with Mandarin. So I know that we can make mistakes, but you know that your turn is coming and you have to think. You don't want to sound stupid or say something totally wrong. Like if I say something, I'd rather it be something correct. Yeah. Lucy, life science student with Japanese. I think speaking is the most useful, understanding the language stuff, because you need to go through your brain to express the thing, to actually understand how to use it. Olivia, a life science student with Spanish. Ask her, like, do you speak Spanish outside of the classroom? And to be honest, no. Yeah, I probably should. But just like anyone who knows is a Spanish speaker, because we speak in English, it's weird to kind of change the language, you know. Yeah, any thoughts about this? Yeah.
Encouraging students to make mistakes or to make them feel like making mistakes is okay. It's one of the most difficult things to do. It also depends very much on the personality. They will
Yes.
praise the mistakes, but then when you notice mistakes, oh, I see that.
Yes. Yeah. Me too. I think it resonates to my experience. So they often mention that they recognize that they can make mistakes. But at the same time, they don't always take every opportunity to speak, which is in class or outside of the class.
I just want to ask you guys, you in relating to that. So in your class, do you ask individual students to say something in class? Because which I do, so it's relevant to then they may be afraid to make mistakes in their time. Because when I talked with one of my colleagues, I'm surprised that she never picked one person to say something in class, just afraid to that person, feel like kind of shy or afraid of making mistakes, etc. So I never thought that I do ask the individual students to say things, but as making mistakes, but also encourage that. But that's okay. You should make mistakes, and it's not something you should feel embarrassed about. But I just wonder, do you individually pick a person to something in class, or you're afraid you do? Okay, so I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's there are two things, no? They know they can make mistakes. So usually they recognize this. The classroom environment is very supportive.
Yeah.
But even if you know that, you don't, as Chloe said, like you don't want to say something stupid. Yes, we can talk about it later. Also give some recommendation, because I think it's an issue we can address. Yes, the third theme is resources acquisition. Learners develop skills in a second language in the hope of increasing the value of their cultural capital. for Olivia, life science student with Spanish, there is not really much communication in science, and so I think doing communication in languages literally does force you, I think, to talk to people, to give your opinion on things. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've got from learning a language is just being able to talk to people. Or Sophie, engineering student with Japanese. I don't want to just kind of like pigeonhole myself into just a STEM student. And learning a language, I think that's a really good way of combining my interest in STEM with my interest in like more cultural and more literature stuff. Chloe, engineering student with Mandarin. If you are an engineer, you should be willing to engage with in other aspects because it's what fosters creativity, it's what fosters human imagination, human thought. You should not close yourself off to arts and language. Yeah, it's like inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts about this? Yeah.
What you said is it resonates with me because my students sometimes are afraid of giving their own views, because they're science students, so they're used to dealing with facts, and which are backed up with scientific evidence, and so they're not often put in a position where they have to express their own views. So the language has changed. So sometimes it can be scary for them, but I've tried to tell them, look, more community, it's validated, it's more common. If you talk about it, it's space. So it's a different perspective.
Yeah, for me, what they are saying is that learning a language is more just learning a language. It goes beyond that. As I don't want to pigeonhole myself in just a STEM student. No, I want to be something else. No? I want to know more cultural literature stuff. So I found it very interesting. So to sum up with like the discussion of findings, so the future self has this importance to have a clear goal. There is also an interconnection between their study as STEM students and the language they are learning. And this ability to make connection encourage them to invest in different aspects of languages. So yes, it was interesting to see how they make this connection between their study and their language. So I'm an engineering student and I'm studying German, for example. For me, it makes sense because Germany is a leading country in engineering, for example. In terms of language skills, there's this ambivalent desire to speak the language. They recognize the importance of speaking. They often say that speaking is the most useful, is the most important, but they don't always take opportunities to converse. In terms of resources acquisition, investment take form in both the opportunity to access more legitimate position and the development of existing ones. And participants see languages as a pathway to broader cultural context and potential future identity. So based on this, I have some recommendations we can implement in our teaching. The first one, I think, is it's important to give students opportunities to set their own objective and explain why they are learning a second language. It can take the form of a portfolio to set learning goals and where they can document their progress. and also language biography with goal settings and self-assessment. Secondly, it's important as well to encourage students to keep a weekly journal of their interaction with the target language. It's something that can be done. To help students practicing their oral skill outside of the classroom, because at the end, it's what we want to do. No? We want to use the language in real life. And also include a reflective task based on their experience of their learning, to enhance communicative skill and make informed choices about which competencies to focus on. So, is it all skills, writing skills, maybe more cultural skills? So, yeah, this is the. I created a template for a weekly journal. It can take this form with the date, time, duration, some details about the people they're talking with, and comments on their interaction. What did you observe? What did you feel? What difficulties have you identified? Any coping strategies? When you speak another language, sometimes you find strategies to express yourself, or if you don't understand everything, you can develop strategies. So it's like to help them develop this. How effective was the communication, etc. And also a template for student reflection, because sometimes when you ask students to reflect on their learning, they will say, "Oh, I will talk more, or I will listen to French more," this kind of thing. But yeah, what needs to be more specific and scaffolded. So it's something you can do in class with students. So to help them to reflect on their communication experience, the difficulties, they can evaluate as well the communication, the communicative competence, and the communication experience in general. So speaking, listening, reading, writing, and identity, and what they learn and gain from their communication experience. So, when we ask them to do that, usually they do it on their own. I think it's important as well to discuss that with other students, and I don't think they have many opportunities to do this kind of thing. Yes, so learning a language can sometimes feel demoralizing when learners realize how much time and effort it takes to become proficient. But we can engage learners' investment by helping them develop a long-term plan, which includes short-term language learning goals to bridge the gap between their current reality and their aspiration. Voilà, that's it.
There's no questions in the chat, but perhaps.
I would like to ask you, do you ever practice, for example, this weekly diary with your students?
If I practice this?
If you did it with students?
No, no. No, well, I developed this last summer, and I submitted my thesis in September. I wanted to get feedback from my tutors before doing anything. So no, not this year. But yeah, it's definitely something I will try. Like maybe next year.
That's really useful, like the self-reflection. But then we always arrive to the same answer. I don't have time. So I think that to try to show it's not like a homework, because they are saying I have so much homework, and they see that like more homework.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
So this is my difficulty.
Yeah.
What is how you can make them something like that, or reflect, make them reflect about government and so on, without it looks like home.
Yeah.
Therefore, could you repeat the question? Because Anna in the chat is saying that she can give a question.
Yeah, I can give you the microphone.
Okay, the question was no question, it was a reflection that I think that can be very useful, but we have to try to do it in, I don't know how, but in a way they don't see that like a more homework, because they are always complaining about we have too much homework. If we try to do something like that, weekly diary, reflect about your own improvement and so on, I think we have to find a way to do it. They don't think we are asking them for more homework.
I'm not sure about that, but maybe it's something you can do in class. You can take maybe not every week, but sometimes you can take 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do this kind of activity. Also, maybe it can be assessed. So you can give them a template and yeah, something you can assess at the end of the year. University of Reading, we have a portfolio, so we ask them to reflect on their learning, and the reflective part is assessed. Is maybe 25% or 30% of the total mark. Yeah. Yeah, something else?
Hi. You mentioned several times how important it is for students to have a clear goal. And you gave the example of a student who was thinking that German might be important for her professional future. And I was wondering whether you found any differences across languages, because my feel is that when it comes to Spanish, especially in the lower levels, students don't sign up for Spanish because they want to learn Spanish. They sign up because they want to learn a language and they find Spanish more accessible, but it doesn't mean they want to learn Spanish. So I don't know how to incorporate that.
Yes, it's a good question. Maybe Spanish has the reputation of being easier. But that's something maybe you mentioned lower level, so maybe they don't know yet. So it's also a goal to help them to develop their future goals. So when you start a new language, you don't really know what you want to do with it. It's more like, I want to try what it is like. So I think it's something we can develop with them. I don't remember now, but the quote I showed you, there were students who were already at advanced level. So I don't remember exactly which level, but they were like maybe 4 or 5. So they had time to develop this. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, just going back to what you mentioned about the reflective comments about their learning as part of the assessment. I'm very interested in that. And then I don't know how you could assess the students' reflective thinking? If it, just very curious about what's the criteria to this is a very good, I don't know, reflection, or how do you think people are assessing the reflective part of the assessments?
During my training here with the Education Development Unit, the first year was the postgraduate certificate, and we have to write a portfolio with there is a strong reflective element in it, and how it's assessed. Maybe Nikki, you can develop more. It's there's a element of change. You know? What is it? Who am I at the beginning of the program, and where I arrived at the end, and our tutors, they really encourage us to develop. You know? So there is it's not really like something you need to reach, but more a development. So from the starting point to like somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to add.
So in terms of how you assess reflective writing, so I mean, there's lots of different approaches on this, but in that example, we are looking at the journey, the developmental journey. So from where you are, your recognition of where you are and what has influenced that development. So it's what influences, what factors, what changes in your thoughts or understandings, and the different things that are fed into that journey. So the reflective aspect is tracked, and you draw from the different influences along the way. That captures the scale. That is the overarching criteria, really. So it's the capacity to reflect on not just the what you've done, but the why and the how as part of that journey as well. So yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way of
yeah. Well, I was going to comment because all of my modules have a reflective element that I assess. And in fact, the first year module is purely reflective. So the only thing that they get assessed on is their reflective questionnaire that they do at the end of term. But what I do for them is I give them the reflection question in the first year case. I give them the question every week. And so they have the question at the moment that they've had the experience. So they reflect on whatever the workshop was or what their experience was in class that day. And then at the end of term, I give them those same questions again, and they can copy and paste the answers that they've already given me. But then I give them additional prompts to think about maybe how their thinking has changed, or I remind them that a good reflective answer isn't just reporting what's happened, but thinking about why or how that made you feel, or what you might do differently next time, having thought about it later. So all those sorts of questions can get you a really rich reflective answer from the students.
Is it like a scale of 1 to 10, and then, this person, I don't know, how you give this kind of numerical number for individuals, more like the purpose, and let them reflect. That's the core purpose. But then as an assessment, maybe it's a small percent.
Well, in the first year class, it's all of it, but those are not for credit. Yeah, so they will get a mark, but the way that we do it, because yes, it is high stakes to have your reflection be what you're marked on. And obviously some students will naturally feel more comfortable doing that, and other students will find that much more challenging. It's important to give them a lot of scaffolding along the way, and to actually tell them what a good reflection looks like. Because the point is not to catch them out. It's not to get a bunch of 40s and a bunch of 80s, right? The point is to get really rich reflection out of all of them. And so you just give them a clear understanding of what the expectation is. And then, I mean, it's one of those things, like, I've read enough reflections now, I know what a good one is, which is not terribly helpful, right? But it's what Nikki was saying. It's when they can tell you not just what has happened, but why, and what some of the impacts were, and they can think about maybe what they're going to do differently, or they might realize that they ran out of time. And so, they don't have enough time to do as much language learning. And so it wasn't as successful as they thought. So maybe if I continue language learning next year, I will try to be better about actually making time in my schedule to make sure that I practice Japanese or whatever, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Very useful and very, very interesting. Being interesting that adding that element to the composition of those things. Okay. Thank you.
Just to add, Yuki, that we have a portfolio in French just in level 2 this year that we're just trialing. But most of it is actually formative. And the only thing that is summative is the reflection task at the end, right? And so for us, in this last part, we assess both the reflection and the language because they're not supposed to repeat the same mistakes that they made in the formative task before, right? So at the end of the term, we're not supposed to see the same mistakes. Sometimes we do, but and so when we assess their analytical thought, we assess their ability to identify progress and difficulties, to take actions to overcome difficulties, to understand their learning style, to apply formative feedback, and to set themselves some objectives for next year. Or in our case, in French, there's 2 portfolios. So at the end of the first one, they set themselves objectives for the second one. And then on the second one, they go back and see if they actually achieve any of those goals. Right?
So you give those kinds of questions.
Yes.
To answer and develop.
Some prompts. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm going to ask you personally again. Sorry. I listened to all of it.
We're having a conversation about
I heard it all. I couldn't hear people's contribution online.
no? Even with the microphone. Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot
reflection is a skill you learn, and again during my training, the first part, the PG set, there was this element of formative feedback. So we had this assignment to submit it, and then we had feedback from our tutors with the opportunity to resubmit it. That was really important to be a reflective learner. It's something. Again, it's something you learn. No? So when I talk to students, when we ask them to develop the reflective skills at the beginning, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I will speak more, or I will read more. But over time, they develop these skills. Yeah. Anything else? You want to add something? Yeah.
So in level 2, or also in Reading, where you do the reflective tasks, so how much guidance do you provide? How much? Because just for a student to have the ability to reflect on their language learning, on their progress, etc., they probably need some guidance on this. They need the terminology, among other things. And do you have any advice on this? Any experience with this?
It needs to be scaffolded. So they need prompt questions to help them reflect. You need the right balance. You don't want to give them too much, otherwise it's just a box ticking exercise. It depends. It's something. University of Reading, like every year, I change a little bit. I add something. So, oh yeah, maybe I could add this, or add the opposite. No, maybe I could remove a little bit. You need to adjust every time. do you give prompt questions to your students for their reflect? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
every time.
And depending on how long they've been doing reflection for, more or less full questions. Like, there's the original question and then maybe 3 prompts after to get them to be reflective if they don't already.
So you need this dialogue too with students. So they give you their comments, and then they reflect on your comments again. Yeah. Also, if you have any questions about the masters, if you are interested in completing it, you are welcome to ask questions.
Do you use this master while you're working full time?
Yes.
So
yes.
Was it managed? Is it 2-year course or 1-year course?
The program is 3 years.
Okay, it makes sense.
In total. So first year is the postgraduate certificate, then a postgraduate diploma, and then a master's.
There's an information session about the PG sets coming up in a couple of weeks. That's the first level of it. I can't remember the dates, but it's yeah, that's the first level.
That's it all year round. I'm really, I don't know, ashamed to say, but it's far too busy during the summertime. I really admire people who do something else, like studying or that, I don't know, while you're doing this. Some I could do it, but to do those courses only concentration in summer or we have to do all year round. And some come, then comes so crazy, and I just, I admire people who.
It's quite flexible.
It's designed to accommodate everybody on the program.
And
so it's designed to accommodate that, but yeah, you do need to move the time. Yeah, correct.
You are enrolled in it, huh?
It's my first year, but I'm really into my goodness. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, it's my first year on the PG dip. Reading, loads of it. You can't get away from it. I'm reading every night, a chapter a night. Also, you have to work. You have to plan your lessons. You have to do everything. So I'm on the tube. I know I'm going to be reading this when I get on the tube and writing notes. And yeah, you have to invest time in it. If I thought I can just skim read, and it shows in your results. Don't skim read. If you think you can just coast through, just do last minute, it's not going to, well, for me, it won't work, because it will show. So loads of reading, loads of critical analysing, critical thinking, and also knowing how to implement it in your practice, make it relevant to your practice. Otherwise, it's just going to sound abstract. Yeah, I'm on my first year. So. Yeah, the diploma. Yeah. And then after I'm on the diploma.
So you already got
Yeah, from somewhere else. Yeah. I didn't get it from here, but from somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. It was. Yeah, thank you. It was we had interesting conversation, and I hope we will continue discussing this, and yeah, I hope we will develop our program and make it better. Thank you.